The rain hammered against the windows of the sleek black car as my dad drove me to the Blackwood estate. I sat at the back seat, my heart racing. He hadn't spoken a word since we left the house, just cold, heavy silence. The kind that makes you feel like you're already gone. When the car stopped, he finally spoke, his voice hollow.
This is for the best, Evelyn. You'll understand one day.
I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I stepped out into the rain. The mansion loomed ahead, its towering gates and sharp angles making it look more like a fortress than a home. My dad drove away without looking back, and I was left standing there, alone. The door creaked open, and there he was. Adrian Blackwood. His sharp jawline, piercing gray eyes, and perfectly tailored suit made him look like he'd stepped out of a magazine. But his expression was ice cold, his gaze cutting through me like a knife.
Come in. You're letting the rain in.
I hesitated, but the chill of the rain forced me inside. The foyer was grand, with marble floors and a crystal chandelier that sparkled like ice. Adrian closed the door behind me.
You belong to me now. Try to run, and I will find you. Try to defy me, and you won't like the consequences. Your room is upstairs. You'll start work tomorrow.
Work? What kind of work?
You'll find out.
And that was it. No welcome, no explanations. Just a cold, sterile mansion and a man who saw me as nothing more than a debt repaid. At first I was terrified. I kept my head down, barely spoke, and did everything to avoid his gaze. But I wasn't invisible to him. He watched me in ways that made my skin prickle, testing me with sharp words and impossible demands.
Stop trembling every time I walk into a room. If you're going to be here, at least grow a spine. I don't have time for weakness.
I accidentally knocked over a glass of wine at one of his business dinners. The silence that followed was suffocating. His gaze slowly lifted to mine, sharp and unforgiving.
Pathetic.
He muttered under his breath before turning back to his guests. I told myself I hated him. I repeated it every night. But hate didn't stop me from noticing things. Like the way his fingers curled into fists whenever someone mentioned the name Sophia, or how he would pause in front of a locked door down the hallway, staring at it for a beat too long before walking away. I wanted to hate him. I did hate him for taking me away from my parents. And then there were the moments that confused me the most, like the time I accidentally cut my hand, and before I could react, he was there pressing a cloth to the wound, his hand steady but his jaw tight. It's just a scratch. He didn't respond. He just wrapped my hand carefully, his touch gentler than I ever thought possible. I told myself it meant nothing, but then one night, I overheard him speaking on the phone.
She's just part of the deal, nothing more.
It shouldn't have hurt. I should have expected it. And yet, something inside me shattered. I packed a bag that night. I didn't care if he found me. I didn't care if I had nothing. I just wanted to leave. But Adrian Blackwood never let anything slip through his fingers. He found me before I even reached the door.
You think you can just walk away?
You don't own me. I am not part of your deals, your contracts, your business. For the first time, he looked lost, as if he wasn't sure of what to say.
I know, and that's why I'm letting you go.
I should have felt relieved, freedom. But instead, all I felt was an ache deep in my chest. I realized something terrifying. Despite everything, I wasn't sure I wanted to leave anymore. The man I thought was a monster had become something else, something I couldn't walk away from. We carried on like nothing changed. One night, I collapsed from exhaustion in the hallway. I hadn't been eating much. I had barely been sleeping, but I never expected him to care. And yet, the next thing I knew, I was waking up in his bed, warm blankets wrapped around me.
You're useless to me if you're dead. Eat something.
That was all. No kindness, no apology. But it was the first time he had acknowledged me as something other than a burden. From then on, things shifted. He let me sit in his office while he worked. He never spoke to me, but he didn't send me away either. He started asking casual questions as if he wasn't interested.
Why do you stare at paintings for so long? Why don't you ever raise your voice? Why do you look at me like that?
I never had good answers. One night, I fell asleep on the couch, and when I woke up, there was a blanket draped over me. I knew it was him. Then came the day everything changed. It was raining, and I was standing by the window, lost in thought, when I felt his presence behind me. He didn't speak for a long time, but when he did, his voice was different.
I don't know how to be gentle.
I turned to look at him, surprised. He was staring at the rain, his hands clenched into fists as if he hated the words he was saying. I wanted to tell him that he wasn't beyond saving, that he didn't have to be the cold, ruthless man he had become. But I didn't. Why did you do it?
Do what?
By me, why would you do something like that? Do you get off on controlling people? On making them feel small? His jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought he might yell at me. But then he sighed.
It's not what you think.
Then tell me what it is. Because right now, all I see is a man who thinks he can own people. He stood, his towering frame looming over me. But instead of intimidating me, he just looked tired.
Your parents owed me money. A lot of money. They couldn't pay, so they offered you instead.
And you just accepted?
No, I didn't want you, but I took you because... He trailed off. Because I owed someone else. Someone I couldn't save.
What are you talking about? That evening, he handed me a photograph. It was a picture of a young woman with bright eyes and a warm smile. She looked familiar.
That's my sister. She died 5 years ago. Your parents, they took money from her, promised to help her start a business. But they lied. They took everything she had, and when she couldn't pay them back, they...
His voice broke as if trying to hold back the pain. I swear, I didn't know.
I know. That's why I took you. Not to hurt you. To protect you. Because I couldn't protect her.
I stared at him, my mind reeling. All this time, I had thought he was a monster. But now I saw the truth. He was just a man broken by loss and guilt. A man who'd made terrible choices, but still had a heart. When he kissed me for the first time, it wasn't about ownership or debt. It was about two broken people finding something real in each other. And for the first time since I had been sold to him, I felt like I belonged, not as a possession, but as someone he was afraid to lose. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment for more inspiring stories and content.